Welcome back. I think that this is the time that I should say, did you miss us?
Listen, the tens of people we have listening.
The tens of people matter to me, and I want them
to
know that we care, and we're sorry that we have fallen out of rhythm. But it's summer, so maybe we'll just call it the summer. We'll blame it on summer.
We can do mea culpas all day long, but it's, the reality is we're small business owners.
This is true.
And
we're not just sitting around eating bonbons.
Do they still make bonbons?
I don't know.
Whatever. All right.
But I could use some Calgon right about now.
Take me away. All right. Like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on Facebook at Elevate Polk. And, of course, we're streaming everywhere.
Everywhere.
Hi, Mom. Everywhere. My mom misses us.
Where do you listen to us? I'm curious. I don't know how to ask them that for them to give me some commentary, but we have a Facebook page, so maybe you could go there and tell us where you prefer to listen to the Elevate Polk podcast. Is it on Spotify? Is it on Apple Podcasts? Is it on YouTube? If you're on YouTube, give us a comment there. Mm-hmm. I believe Spotify now has comments available on podcasts.
I don't Spotify at all.
I know, I do. It's a really great world. Can I tell you what I tried this week?
Please tell me what you tried this year. We've got another 55 minutes.
We got lots of time. No, there's an AI DJ on Spotify.
Of course there is.
And the AI DJ, I told the AI DJ, give me music, contemporary Christian music that I can run to. Because I wanted new songs during my running that I could vibe with the Holy Spirit, and that was the really cool thing I did this week, because it was really good songs that I hadn't heard, and it kind of brought them into my world. And it was just like, when you know a song, you don't think about the song. When you don't know a song, you're very intently listening to it, and that's what I love. Is it's just the opportunity to hear something that I haven't heard already, that I can just let my mind go a little bit. Stop looking at me like that.
I'm just fascinated that you are filled with the Holy Spirit while you're jogging around the neighborhood.
Yes. That's the whole reason I'm running.
Good on you.
Time for me and God.
So, title of this episode is My Own Worst Enemy. So, talking about music, I listen to Apple Music while I'm editing the shows and coming up with ideas. And, of course, My Own Worst Enemy popped on the other day, and it got me thinking. It got me thinking because I was in the throes of being consumed by a project that I didn't need to be consumed in. And I started to come to the realization that, in fact, I was my own worst enemy.
So you were your own block. You had to get out of your own way.
Yeah, I had to get out of my own way. And so I'm glad we're talking about this today, because I think that a lot of small business owners are really going to be able to connect with this, that, kind of that paralysis by analysis, chasing perfection when good enough is good enough.
Right.
It really is going to stick with a lot of people, because I know as a small business owner that I'm seeing things all day long in my businesses that just need a small little tweak. It could be something in the website. It could be something, in the physical, brick and mortar location. It could be, something in a process, whatever. It's just like, that's just not right. And you're constantly sitting there just turning the knobs to just get everything. When we are setting up for today, and you go, you heard a little hum in the headphones, and I'm like, that's unacceptable. But I realized that I had to let it go.
Yeah. Well, I can't hear it now.
I can still hear it. But it's faint, and I'm sitting here, I got my little controls, and I want to,
next time I won't mention it.
No, I would have heard it. So, but I think as we get into this, we are going to use some technical terms. And one of the things that I'm really trying to do is not assume that the technical terms that we use will be known by everyone, or everyone will have at least a more than a vague understanding of what they mean. So, can we start with some definitions?
Sure.
Or did you want to?
No. You opened perfectly.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
We are going to talk today about funnels. Now, what is a funnel? I mean, funnel could be anything. In fact, I'm giving a talk on this.
We're not talking about beer funnels.
No, we're not talking about beer funnels. We can talk about that later if you want to go have a beer. But We're talking about the way that your things, your sales, your processes, your operations kind of start at the top and they collect a whole bunch of stuff and then you distill them down into your final product.
Yeah.
Okay. So the actual definition is the path a customer travels from first hearing about you to actually paying you. That's how you attract them, you build trust, and you close the sale. That's a sales funnel.
Correct.
You can also have operational funnels.
Absolutely.
And in fact, that's a talk that I'm giving to the Simply Connected event.
Oh, cool.
On Thursday is operational funnels.
Yep.
And owners being their own bottleneck.
Yeah.
Which is hilarious.
I am the bottleneck.
Because
I say that all the time.
I was my own bottleneck, my own worst enemy the other day.
Yeah, well, I'm going to try and follow the model of the funnel today and not jump ahead. But there are like all of these thoughts firing in my brain about things I want to say later in the show. So I will hold that thought until we get there.
That's right, because we need to get to that point in the funnel. And this is exactly how the episode's going to go.
Yeah.
We're going to front load it with a lot of stuff. We're going to kind of distill it, and then we're going to come up and we're going to have our conclusion.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
I like this. I like this flow. Packaging your expertise is the next one. And this came from the
Russell
book
Brunson.
The book that you sent me over.
Expert Secrets.
Right.
Yep.
So packaging your expertise is tuning what you already know into something repeatable you can hand off or sell instead of rebuilding it from scratch every time.
Yeah. Well, you know about the Crocs, right? Who started McDonald's, and they thought that we thought that they were a hamburger company, but they were a system. They sold a system. They didn't sell hamburgers.
Right.
And that's how they became McDonald's. Not because they had this great burger, but because they were able to guarantee that whichever McDonald's you might go to, the Big Mac was going to taste the same. It was going to have the same ingredients. It was going to have this consistency across all of the franchises, right?
Yep.
So that idea of repeatable and systemizable and consistency is something I think we all, as business owners, struggle with, because we are our own worst enemy. We're picking it apart and we're not shipping V1. We're perfecting something that it's still not going to be perfect when we ship it, right? So I think that packaging your expertise is something that we have to realize that it actually has to be packaged in order for it to go out the door, right?
Right.
To get it out the door.
Your MVP, your minimum viable product.
Ooh, in unison.
Woo. Has to go out the door. You have to have your customers get their hands on it. And then you can slowly start tweaking. You can make your version 1.1, your version 1.2, your version 2.0s, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, look at it with any great software product that we've had in the last 50 years.
Right.
Are we all still using, Windows 3.1?
No.
I don't even know what we're using now.
I wish we could keep the hardware as they continue to update the software, because if we still had those original iPhones, those were little teeny tiny little boogers, They were like this big instead of like this big.
The massive phablets.
Yeah.
All right. And then the next definition we want to go over is shippable or shipping it.
Yeah.
So that's putting something in front of real customers, even though it's not perfect, instead of holding it back to keep refining it in private. So I want to go back because I love the food truck world. And I think that,
You just love food.
I do love food, but I think restaurateurs and everybody else can kind of understand this. You've got this great idea that comes into your head for this dish. Okay. And we'll just go to hot dog because we talked about hot dog trucks in the last episode. Okay. I've got this crazy hot dog. I want to throw, relish, ketchup, mustard, cheese whiz, chili, slaw. And I've got this great creative name for it.
You're making yourself hungry. I can see your eyes. You're starting to drool.
I haven't had
You
breakfast.
need a napkin?
But you sit there and you keep tweaking it. You keep tweaking how much of this item you want to put on there. What size is your hot dog going to be? Am I going to use, a King's Hawaiian style hot dog bun or a potato roll, or am I going to go traditional or poppy seed or whatever the case may be? And you sit there and play with it and you spend months trying to refine it to get that perfect flavor instead of, hey, I got an idea. I'm going to throw this out on a regular hot dog bun. Give me some feedback on it, and then refine along the way.
And tell me what you think.
Right. I have this idea. Ship your idea.
Right. Ship it.
And then refine.
So I'm going to sidebar. It fits right here, but it also fits later in the conversation. But I have this journal, and it's the Ship It journal. And we'll talk about it when we get a little further down the road. But it's this really great conversation about how you have to do the thing in order to make the thing better. And we have to iterate, and we continue to iterate. And so that whole paralysis by analysis conversation is also procrastination. Not shipping it, we could always come up with another reason, right? It's not this, it's not that, it doesn't have that, I'm not credible, or I don't have the experience, or nobody's going to believe me, no one's going to trust me, whatever. Those are all excuses, and they're fear disguised as an excuse. So setting that frame as we go through this conversation, because I feel like that's the heart of it. Nobody really wants to talk about being afraid, but at the same time, we can mask it in whatever way we want because we're really brilliant people. We're really, really smart at what we do. And so we're going to tell somebody, because if I told you, hey, next week I'm shipping something, and the following week you come in and you go, hey, did you ship the thing? And I say, oh no, this happened. I bet you $1 million that's just the narrative that I'm going to tell you, but there was no reason why I didn't ship it except for whatever's going on in my head, right? And I think we've all been there. So we're trying to kind of talk us through like, hey, first of all, we relate. We get it. We are our own worst enemy. All of us have been there, done that, bought the T-shirt. I have a lot of them. Mm-hmm. And so now, how do we work through that? What do we do? What's the solution? And I will tell you, I really enjoy I don't know if I enjoy the podcasting as much as I enjoy the prep for the shows, right? Because they get me thinking ahead of time. I want to be prepared. I want to have these thoughts organized. I want to know I want to try to anticipate what Dan's going to say so that I can like be ready with my pithy response.
Good luck with that.
It's all part of the process, right? So last night as I was preparing for this, and when we started talking about the topic, I brought up the Russell Brunson book, which is called Expert Secrets. And of course, this morning when I was leaving, I had several things I needed to do. I had to take some things out to the truck. I left the book at home. So I don't have the book as a prop, but ding, it's going to pop up right here.
Somewhere.
This is the book. It's called Expert Secrets by Russell Brunson. And here's a quote. And this kind of talks about why we do what we do. He calls it the epiphany bridge. It's the thing that anchors us in the reason why we do the work. And so whatever the business it is that you do, there was some epiphany that happened to you that got into your, I can't read my writing, sorry. Some epiphany that happened to you that got you into this thing, and you became obsessed with it. You started studying it, learning it. You learned all the jargon and all the keywords and all the things that came from that, and you became very educated. So the epiphany bridge then turns into the thing that you start to do in the business that you decide to run, because something triggered something in you of passion, of interest, of desire, that you're like, I want to know all the things, and I can see that in you, right? Like that is exactly the description.
Was that the nerding out
I was like
earlier?
Listening, I'm like, we need to go do this podcast right now, because he was in the office talking to Amanda, and it was just like one of those wonderful moments of nerdisms, like two nerds talking to each other about all of the things, and he was just super excited. I'm like, hey man, I don't have all day. I got to go record. He's like, I'm waiting for you. I'm like, no, you're not. You're in there nerding. So this is where my brain started to go when we started to prepare for this conversation. Okay, so
there's a lot of validity to that because in the last several months that I really have been trying to kick the it's 3pm.io thing off the ground. Yep. But I had some technological roadblocks along the way, and well, not even technological road. I was my own worst enemy, but I wasn't my own worst enemy because I was blocking the funnel at that point. I had a knowledge gap, right? And so I have spent months and months and months trying to catch up with the technology, because my technology stops, my technology education stops somewhere around 2014, 2015. So I'm a decade behind, and I've been trying to make that up in the last 9 months or so.
Right.
Doing CLEs every single day, doing every single MOOC that I can find, massive open online courses. I 100% suggest you take those if you can find them.
It's M-O-O-K, not M-U-K.
M-O-O-C.
M-O-O-C. Courses.
Massive
Sorry,
open
M-O-O.
online courses.
Yep, sorry. I knew that, just said the wrong letter.
MIT offers them. Harvard offers them. There's a whole bunch of different other places that offer them. And most of the time they're free. You go in and it's just like you're sitting inside of a regular classroom.
Right.
But you just don't get the grade, to go on your transcript at the end of it.
To have the luxury of sitting in a classroom and learning from the professor. Those were the good old days.
It really was, yeah. So, but those are absolutely amazing to go to. And of course, all of your other different trade groups and different organizations have their own different learning modules that you can take. And I find myself a lifelong learner. I just love absorbing information. It doesn't matter if it's relevant to what I'm doing. It could just be learning how to garden. So, but anyways,
okay.
We're gonna go. We next.
So I want to talk about the leaky bucket.
Oh right. Yeah. So you skipped over the leaky bucket into the Epiphany Bridge.
No, I did. Well, I did. You're right. I went out of order. But because we were talking about shippable, I needed to explain why we do what we do. Right. So last night, as I was preparing for the show, this just kind of came out of me. This is me writing legitimately my words, not AI. It's literally what came out of me as I was preparing for this. Because what I do in the business that I have with the digital marketing side of things is I have clients like you. I'm remembering a conversation that we had not too long ago when you were asking me to review some anomalies within Google business profiles, right? And you're asking me my expertise and my knowledge and my experience. And I'm like, Dan, I don't really think this is where you need to be spending your time and energy because you're raging against the Google gods, right? Like you're not going to fix the Google anomaly. It's probably a glitch. It may fix itself. It may not. But does it really matter? I don't know. But this is what you were kind of fixated on that day. And this is what I'm dealing with a lot of times with clients because they want to focus on this very low level piece of information that they can kind of grab onto, fixate. And again, it's kind of like, they get that, they understand that, but the part that's more important is up here where they really are not wanting to go. So I was describing this idea of imagine you have a leaky bucket. Imagine you have a bucket and you spoiled the plot. Anyway, imagine you have a bucket and a nearby well. Your business needs water to grow, so your job is to get water from the well to the business. Every day you go to the well, you dip the bucket into the well, you pull it out, and you begin walking back to your business, pouring the water on your business so it will grow. Every day you feel like you're doing everything you can. It's a lot of water, it's a lot of walking, it's a lot of heat, okay? Day after day you do this work, tirelessly, with commitment, enthusiasm, belief in the importance of the work you're doing. Then, one day, someone comes along and says, "Hey, did you know you have a hole in your bucket? You're leaking more water than you're actually pouring on your business. If you fix that, you'll have 80% more water to pour onto your business when you get back from the well. This means you would only have to go back to the well 2 to 3 times per week instead of daily. And what would you do if you didn't have to spend all that time on going to the well and bringing the water back? Would you stop, fix the bucket, or would you keep pouring whatever water you get onto the business because it's working enough?" So this is the opposite of analysis paralysis, right? This is ignorance to the reality of what you just called the bottleneck, right? You're not acknowledging that you could fix a problem that might just be as simple as you getting out of the way and letting somebody else take over because that's their skill set. That's their God-given talent and their abilities. But we are so fixated on perfection and doing everything ourselves and doing it right and getting it figured out and all of those things that we can't see the forest for the trees. We can't see what someone else, just like you're walking by, you're going, dude, you're spilling more water than you're actually making it into your business. You don't even know that, right? So for me, the question is, the important part of it is, would you actually stop and fix the bucket? Or would you just keep doing it the way, because you actually have to stop now. Like, my business needs water. My business needs water. So I'm going to the well. I'm going to get the water. I'm going to do the thing. I'm going to do the thing. I'm going to keep doing the thing. It's something I know I can do. Wearing myself out, exhausted, burning it from both ends, doing all of this, but it's working, right? The business, I have employees, I have a good product, I have clients, I have the things. I can't stop now.
Right. Well, but I think as small business owners, we always find a place during the year when there is a lull, right? For most of us, it's right in the dead heat of the summer. I mean, everybody's, especially if you have a brick and mortar location that depends on people coming in through your door. People are leaving. They're going on vacation. They're going up north to escape the heat. They're going on cruises. They're doing whatever. the kids are out of school. They're
Yep.
going to go find something else to do. We see a dramatic, at the brewery, we see a dramatic decrease in the amount of people coming in the door just because it's freaking hot.
Mm-hmm.
You know, nobody wants to go out when it's 95, 96, 97 degrees.
Right.
You know, ACs are barely keeping up.
Mm-hmm.
You're in the pool,
Yeah.
you know, over at Kelly Rec.
Or wherever you can
Wherever,
find one.
right, exactly. Those are the perfect times to fix the leaks in your bucket.
Right.
When you have time, when it's not going to be a detriment to your business.
Right.
Go ahead and take some time. Put some JB Weld in the bottom of your bucket.
And let me explain to you where my leaky bucket is. My leaky bucket has been spending the time explaining to Dan, or the Dans of the world, the actual way to fix this problem with your GBP. Because that's what you came to me for.
Yes.
You came to me for this problem. You said, Chrissanne, you know things. And I say, yeah, I do. And what I really should have said is, Dan, it doesn't matter. Instead of spending my energy, my time, my thoughts on something that wasn't going to move the needle for you. And so where I'm landing and what I've shipped to you, I shipped you an MVP on a concept that I'm actually, like, for the first time airing out here. Are you familiar with the Pareto principle?
Please.
The
enlighten me.
80-20 rule?
Oh, the 80-20 rule.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
the
I'm sorry.
Pareto principle.
Okay, well,
The
whatever.
80-20 rule. But if you take the 80-20 rule on top of itself, that means that's the 64-4 rule.
Hold on. Time out. You said 80-20 rule. I know what it is.
Oh, does everybody know what the 80-20 rule is? Nod your heads. Sorry, You're not here. The 80-20 rule is that 20% of the work you do results in 80% of the output. So it's not the little things that matter. It's the little things that matter, but it's not the effort. The amount of effort doesn't matter. It's the things you have to focus on that are the most important things, the most high impact things that you can do to move the needle, right? So if you do these 20% of these things, 80% of the outcome. Well, if you flip that, because 20% is still a lot. It can be overwhelming. You don't have all that time to do 20% of the work. So what if we just said, if you did 4% of the work, that would generate 64% of the output. So in the 4% world I'm working on is this idea that if I could help you figure out what it is you actually have to spend time on, would you do it? If I could say, let's analyze your business, let's ask you some questions, let's figure out the things that are actually working in your business that are solid, that you don't need to spend any time on, and what's the 4% of the things that you need to spend some time on. And then you move on down the list because that 4% is never going to stop.
I wanted to go look forward just a little bit because this is actually building on something I had for our second segment. It's my problem that I've had outside of the GBP.
Of course, that's just an
I know you're going to pick on me for the Google business profile, but
I smile about it when I think about it. I'm like, he really spent some time trying to figure this out, like chatting with Claude and having conversations. And
I did, yeah. But I spent, and it's a little bit, the numbers are a little bit different. I know that it's 96-4, 80-20, whatever. Mine, when I looked at the reality of the situation, is I spent 10% of my time making 90% of the product. Mm-hmm. And 90% of my time trying to tweak it and making it perfect.
Yeah.
And not shipping it when it was 90%.
Right.
And so therefore all of that time was wasted.
Yeah. And over the years, I've overcome that to a degree. I want to say I don't think we're ever completely free of the lizard brain or whatever it is that you want to call it, that kind of freezes you in place and makes you feel like perfect, anything short of perfect is not good enough.
Yeah.
I've come to understand that it's progress over perfection, right? And done is better than perfect, because I can't get to version 2 if I don't ship version 1, right? That's true. Like you cannot have a second version of the product if you never ship the first version of the product.
That's right.
Right? And so this, for me, the epiphany bridge that we just talked about here's my epiphany bridge. Where I started to see things differently for myself was in recognizing and acknowledging that my challenge was belief. I had limiting beliefs in who I was, what I was capable of doing. I'm a big fan of Seth Godin. We've talked about him before. I've got all of his books. I mean, just lots and lots of just like time spent listening and trying to like capture what he's trying to teach into little old me, right? He had a program called the Alt MBA. And it was like an alternative business program produced and delivered by Seth Godin. It was virtual. And I was following along, and I thought literally to myself, there's no way I will ever get into the alt MBA. This is for this kind of person, the kind of person that I am not is who the alt MBA is for. Almost talked myself out of doing it. And then one day I was just like, you know what? This is what Seth is trying to teach me. Let me go apply what I have been learning and go do it. So I filled out my application, closed my laptop, and said, there's no way I'm getting in. Guess what?
Do you get in?
I got in. So when I got in, it was proving myself wrong, like taking the step to turn in the application, to perfect the application. It took me too long to do the application, right? Like, what does it really, really, really matter in the grand scheme of things? Well, it mattered because it was pivotal in my personal growth and my personal development. And so I use that story as my reality check. When I am wanting to talk to somebody about their own limiting beliefs, I have a relatable story that I can share, right? We have to be able to get on the same level and understand. Yeah, I get it. I understand. So now I can tell you, I shipped it. I did it. I got the thing. I got this Ship It journal from my alt MBA. There's the old cute little logo. It doesn't even exist anymore. But we have to do the work in order to get to the next level. That's what I was trying to say about that. That's the alt MBA story. And in the alt MBA, this is what I learned. You can do anything for 30 days. This is why there are so many 30-day challenges. I'm going to guess that Seth kind of had a lot to do with so many people deciding that 30-day challenges were a good idea.
Is this like the weight loss challenge?
Any
30-day
challenge.
Oh,
There's 30-day challenges for marketing, for blogging, for video. It started kind of for me on the running, like 30 days. If I can do it for 30 days, let me see what I can do. 30 days later, there's a Tai Chi challenge I keep seeing in my ads all the time. Do this thing for 30 days. So I think that the ultimate thing is if you can figure out what the one thing or the two things or the four things that you need to do, that's doable. But we're focusing on all of the wrong things. In the business, I call it the broccoli and the potato chips. You guys, business owners come to me and they're like, hey, let's talk about the potato chips. And I'm like, hey, broccoli's really great. It's awesome. It's really good for you. It's healthy. It's got all these wonderful nutrients and vitamins. No. Let's talk about the potato chips. So I'm going to try and do something by providing the 4% solution.
Maybe you just got to figure out a way to make broccoli delicious.
No, because broccoli is already delicious, just as it is.
You know how I like having my presidential quotes, especially Reagan, trust but verify.
Yeah.
You know who doesn't like broccoli? George Bush. Senior, I think. Yes.
I like broccoli. Do you like broccoli?
He refused to have it in the White House.
No broccoli allowed.
Yeah. No broccoli allowed.
Poor broccoli.
All right. We're coming up on the end of the segment.
Yes.
When we come back, I want to give some real life, practical stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm going to spill a little bit about the challenges that I've had.
Okay.
Because as I was nerding out with Amanda before the show, I'm proud of where I got. I'm not proud of the amount of time I spent getting there.
Okay.
And I want to talk about that and why.
Spill it.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
All right. Back in a couple of minutes.
In 2025, you leveled up. Now it's time to break through. The 2026 Central Florida Business Expo, September 29th and 30th at the RP Funding Center in Lakeland, Florida, right in the heart of the I-4 corridor. Connect with hundreds of business owners in a massive exhibit hall. Learn from purpose experts, best-selling authors, TEDx speakers, and Inc. 5000 CEOs, delivering keynotes you will not want to miss. Unlock the strategies, the connections, and the confidence to lead real transformational growth. This is your moment. Break through. September 29th and 30th, 2026 at the RP Funding Center in Lakeland. Registration is open now at cflbe.com.
If you're running a small business, you already know there's never enough time in your day. It's 3pm.io builds custom automations and workflows that save you time and money. Stop working in your business and start working on your business. Go to it's3pm.io to schedule a call today.
We're back.
We are.
And you're going to dish. Spill the tea.
All right. So I know your realm is the digital media side. And we overlap just a little bit in what we do. I think I focus more on the application side and kind of more the ERP.
What does ERP mean?
The Enterprise Resource Planner. So it's what everything runs on. If you have if you work in a big company, you will have this dashboard essentially where all of the tools that your company uses lives.
Yes.
And then all of those.
I love a good dashboard.
I love dashboards too.
Dashboards are amazing.
But so I've been essentially building an ERP for a customer that, again, we talked about it before. I spent 10% of my time building 90% of it. And it looked good. It looked good enough to ship as a V1.
Mm-hmm.
But it was not good enough for me. I couldn't send it out as a V1 because I noticed all of the small little flaws that needed to get fixed.
Right.
It was functional. It did what I said it was supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that we agreed on, which is a great way also to prevent this, is to clearly define your scope, to prevent scope creep, to have it in writing. This is what I'm going to deliver. This is what it's going to be. This is the date it's going to be delivered.
Right. And
then stick to it. And then stop.
Right.
I couldn't do it.
Even though you knew in the middle of it that this was what was happening, were you self-aware as you were doing this that you needed to ship it, but you still held yourself back?
Yep.
Okay.
Because it wasn't perfect. This is the whole paralysis.
Did you phone a friend?
Analysis. I did not phone a friend.
Why not?
Because, again, as a lifelong learner, I wanted to understand why what I was doing was not perfect. What exactly was keeping me from getting, in this part, it was the page speed.
Oh, so are you telling me that when you got the report from some probably not to mention AI, but AI machine?
No, this is through Google. This is through GSC. Whenever I pulled the Core Web Vitals.
So GSC, Google Search Console.
Correct.
Right.
Google Search Console.
Yep.
Which, if you don't have that set up for your business, call Chrissanne, and she would be more than happy to charge
There's
you.
a lot of great insights inside of
money
Google Search Console.
Of how to set all that up. Yeah. So Google Search Console has this thing called Core Web Vitals, which is one of the top buttons on the left-hand side. And it essentially tells you how your site is presenting and how it is performing to the people that are actually accessing it.
Mm-hmm.
And it has a whole bunch of different metrics that it goes by. Performance is the big one. And performance is essentially the speed in which it loads, the file sizes that it loads.
What score were you getting? What speed were you at?
My performance was at a 91.
And that wasn't good enough?
No. So I know, I know this is the hell that I live in, Chrissanne. So 91 for any, that's,
you.
so these, it's out of 100. So everybody knows a 91 is an A, right?
91 is damn good for page speed.
Was not good enough for me. Wow. I had hundreds on every other. I had 100.
I love how you say 100.
100.
100.
Make fun of my South Hillsborough.
You had 100,
accent.
100, yeah.
So my accessibility score, my SEO score, my agentic AI scores, I was 100 across the board. But I couldn't get my performance score up, and I didn't understand why. And so I just kept going into it and diving deeper into it and diving deeper into it. So you were completely
fixated on this thing.
I was completely fixated because I wanted hundreds across the board. And I spent 10% of my time building 90% of the product. It was ready to ship a 91 on a page speed performance.
And nobody's going to notice
Nobody
page
will notice
speed.
it. Nobody will notice it. Google doesn't even notice it. They might give you a little bit of whatever. But I had to have it.
Yeah. So that leaky bucket that you were
that was my leaky bucket.
All of the things, man.
Yeah. And we're talking days.
Yeah. Well, and here's the challenge that I have in the space, right? I have to respond to those reports. Someone will come into me and they'll say, hey, I ran my website into this whatever machine and it spit this stuff out and we're only getting this and this and this and this and this. And ultimately the question that we want to ask is it changing the result?
Right. Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter because the result is what's the most important.
Yep.
And we talk about quality and quality control in our businesses, and quality control is important. But when you're analyzing something that is the algorithm of a machine that no one knows, like we are basing what we understand about the Google algorithm based on outcomes, results. So if I do this, and this, I'm going to get this result. If my website has the schema markup, if my website has solid content, if my website has H1 tags, all of the things, right? I know that the result, but you can still get good results with a 75 or an 80%.
So this goes into, and we're tying it back to the funnel here.
Yes.
Because your funnel, sales, operational, service, it doesn't matter. You've all got this funnel. You've fed all of this information into it. You've got all of the, your contacts. You've got all of the people that you've been working with, and you're starting to funnel them down, and you've started to make the sale, and then you squeeze the funnel.
Yeah, that's what you did.
That's exactly
you
what I did.
didn't even ship.
I did not ship it. I squeezed the funnel closed. I stopped it right in its tracks.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing else could happen because of a fixation with perfection that I had.
Right.
Even though that product was good enough. And so let's talk about the next one, which is the cost of not acting.
Well, you just described it.
It's money.
So this is the conversation that we're having internally around the 4% solution, which I have explained, because people will generally come to me with the idea, I need more requests for quotes, I need more proposals, I need more leads. Ultimately, I need more leads. The idea is if I have 100 leads and I can close 10%, then that's 10 leads per month. And so I need 100 leads a month in order to get to my goal because I know that I can close them, right? Like it's a numbers game at that point in time. So then foundationally, the question becomes, well, how are you getting leads right now? I'm getting them this way, this way, this way, this way. All right, so you're coming to me because you have a goal to get 5%, 10%, 20% more leads per month because we have to be realistic in our goals, right? And then we look at the foundation and we're like, you can get leads just by showing up at networking. You can get leads by, having an ad in the newspaper. You can get leads probably from the yellow pages, right? Like you still can do things and that are going to work. You can fog a mirror and you can probably start to get some business. So the question becomes, how are you going to systemize it? You can't systemize it by doing what you just described,
yep.
Right? Because perfection is just not going to be possible. The level of perfection or the level of quality that you're putting out there, the content, the brand, the crispness of the way things look on your website, the process, the simplicity of working with you, those are things that you can improve that will generate more business, right? But not the things on the back end that nobody sees. I hate to say this, but this is the story of the cobbler the cobbler's children has no shoes,
yeah.
Right? That's what we live in the world, right? Behind the scenes, the cobbler makes the best shoes, beautiful shoes. Everybody wants the cobbler's shoes. But behind the scenes doesn't matter. If the kid doesn't have shoes, that's okay.
Go see the
as long as the customer has shoes.
Go look at your mechanic's car.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
the same thing.
Exactly.
It is the world that we live in. We spend so much time making sure that everybody else's or everything is perfect, that we don't perfect our own internal processes or the things that we need to use on a daily basis that allow us to work. And I think that and I know this. I talk to people about this.
Mm-hmm.
This is things that I teach, and I still find myself doing the same damn things.
Right.
Getting fixated, not focusing on processes, not focusing on what actually moves the needle,
right,
and what puts money in the bank account.
Yep.
It's the constant refinement to perfection instead of focusing on the funnel itself.
Right.
On making sure that you're continuing to move either operationally or sales from the top to the bottom out, start again.
And this is why I would argue that you can't have success on an island.
Yeah.
You actually have to have somebody come in and look and point out and go, hey, man, your bucket's leaking. Mm-hmm. You could probably be better if you just fix the bucket, right? There's no way you can see that yourself. That's why an advisor, a coach, a consultant, somebody who has that experience and expertise, as long as you're in the mindset of listening and being willing to ship it, even when you don't feel like it's worthy or ready, because somebody said to me the other day, the world needs this. The world actually needs what you bring to the world, right? It's not worth shipping, but you decided to go do it because you felt that there was a compelling need. There was a compelling problem out there in the world that your solution would solve. And there are enough people walking around with this problem that if you could just help 5 of them, that would be good, right? So it's this idea that, I don't know, it gets all wrapped up in our heads. So it's ego, it's pride, it's whatever we want it to call. It's shame, it's lack of worthiness, it's I'm not ready, I'm not good enough. I don't know because I feel like those are my words that I would say, but I've never spoken to a confident man who would say that those are the things that go through their minds, right?
Oh, no. And this is an entirely different episode, but we definitely need to talk about it, the imposter syndrome.
You've got it too?
Oh God, who doesn't have it?
Well, some people aren't able to admit it.
I'm starting to work up the ideas for how we do that episode, but we absolutely need to have one on the imposter syndrome, because the older I get, and especially transitioning into new things and new territories, even though I know that I have a lot of the back end knowledge to be able to support this lifelong learner thing that I'm doing, I find myself with imposter syndrome more and more and more and more, even though I know that I am not. Mm-hmm. But that's a whole completely different episode. We don't want to bring that one in.
For anyone listening that wants just a quick thing to think through how to get over imposter syndrome, you are always a couple of chapters ahead of somebody. Mm-hmm. And those are the people that you can help if you have imposter syndrome.
Right.
We'll get into the details of that in another episode. I think that's a great topic.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how do we reframe the narrative? How do we get out of this getting in our own way or being our own worst enemy? Well, I have advice that I can share.
Please spill.
So when I said earlier, I've said this to perfectionists, done is better than perfect. And the response that I got one time was, well, that's a pathway to mediocrity.
Ooh. You know what? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So how is that working is the question that I ask. Okay, you can be right, or you can make progress. But perfection is not progress, especially if you're standing still. And I've always learned, in my journey, I've learned that you're either doing or you're either doing or not doing, but not doing is not standing still. You're getting further and further and further away from whatever progress defined by you looks like. Why? Because you're in your head. I'm going to run tomorrow, and then you don't run. And that, guess what? I didn't run yesterday, so I'm not going to run today becomes the story that you tell yourself. And then you're back at the beginning where I suck, I can't do it, I didn't, whatever that thing is, that hole, like I always describe it as you walk down a hole, you fall in, you get out. Somebody comes along and helps you get out, right? And then you walk down the same street and you fall down the same hole and you walk down the street. You keep doing it over and over and over again, expecting, I'm smart. Why am I still falling in the same hole? I don't have an answer for that part, except for other people in your circle need to be those cheerleaders for you. They need to be the people. And that's what I think I'm such a big fan of community. I'm a big fan of our conversations. I'm a big fan of being able to encourage you. If you'd called me, I would have said, get over yourself and send it out.
That's why I didn't call you.
Because you were wanting to stay there in that frozen state.
At some point in time, somebody had developed the perfect horse-drawn carriage too. I just want you to think about that. Your perfection becomes passé. And so it needs to be innovation more than perfection, because perfection becomes outdated so fast.
Oh, absolutely.
Technology is changing every single day, faster than we can keep up with it. And so your idea of perfection, by the time you get it there, is no longer perfect. And so you're going to be constantly chasing it.
Exactly.
Until it's no longer relevant, the project that you're doing, and then it never ships.
So for me, the question isn't the question that you're asking is, what does done look like? Mm-hmm. Because done is never done.
No.
And therein lies the challenge. But what does success look like? And that goes back to what I was describing earlier with my clients. Is I'm trying to bring them to a place where they can tell me clearly, with clarity, what a goal is. What is your goal? Mm-hmm. And if you give me the goal, then I can start to build out the objective that we're going to measure, the KPI, if you will, right?
Key performance indicator.
Thank you. And then from there, we design the strategy. Well, you can get more leads, like I said, from networking. All right, so how many networking events are you going to go to, and how much is that going to yield? And how we could start to back into those results. But then in a digital space, the world that I operate in, all right, you want more leads, you need more website traffic. What are the tactics that are going to get you more website traffic? You want more form fills? All right, that's the conversion. That's how you're going to know that the traffic converted into a lead. So if you've got 500, your baseline is 500 website visitors per month, you need to double that, let's just say. How are we going to double that? How are you going to get more traffic? Well, it's paid ads, it's organic SEO, it's answer engine SEO, which is, we're going to give you an assignment here in a minute. But these are the tactics that have to help you get to the goal. But if you don't know the goal, if you're just like, I just want more leads, that's the challenge that I'm saying to you. It's too vague. It's not specific. It's not a SMART goal, and it's not measurable because, I mean, it is measurable because you have the number of leads that you have. But most of the time, I'll say, how many leads a month are you getting? Well, I don't know, around.
Do you know what SMART goal? What SMART means?
Oh gosh,
Specific, measurable, attainable, realistic,
and time-bound.
Right, timely.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. But yes, if you want to get out of this slump, if you want to stop chasing perfection, you have to know when good enough is good enough. But you have to be bound by your objective.
Mm-hmm. And you have to stop asking everybody what they think.
Right.
I think that's another part of this problem. Did it work?
Right.
Did the outcome, did the thing that you were trying to get it to do what it needed to do, right? That's a different question than what did you think?
Did your hammer put the nail in the block?
Yeah.
Perfect. Did it go all the way? No. Okay, that's a refinement.
It's a little bent?
Yeah,
Yes.
whatever.
We can make it better.
So what I've started to do, since I was living in this hell for the last several days.
I now know that if I haven't heard from Dan in a couple days, I need to send help.
Is that it is the goal. It is, what am I actually looking to attain on this?
Yes.
This is my scope.
Right.
And when I have checked off my scope, I stop. I walk away.
Mm-hmm.
I let it sit there and simmer. I let that product go.
Okay.
Then I can come back to it.
All right.
V1.1.
But you have to agree that V1
is shipped.
Is good enough and shipped.
Is good enough.
It's launched, it's published, it's out there, it's been shared, it's been texted to a friend, it's been somethinged.
This hot dog has relish, it has ketchup, it has cheese, it has chili,
Yep.
it has onions, and it is being served to a customer.
Yes.
Now, I might have a little, what did you think about it? Give me some feedback
No.
form.
Was it a good hot dog?
But it's going out to the customers, and I'm going to let it go out to the customers for a while.
Yep.
And I'm going to let it sit out there, and I'm going to let it get into the marketplace, and I'm going to let people start to talk about it and start to give a little bit of feedback. Well, I would have made this a little different. I would have made that a little bit different. But you're not doing anything. You're not acting on changing your hot dog recipe.
Right.
Until you have enough time in the marketplace with that product.
And some data.
And some feedback. Not just one person going. Yeah.
This was a conversation that I had the other day. So tell me what you think about blah, 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 blah. Fill in the blank, right? Okay, I'll tell you what I think. But a little Socratic method, asking them to give me some more information before I give them what I think. And what I found out is that they had gotten opinions from several different people, right? I said, then I don't think you need one more opinion. I think what you need to do is figure out the direction that you want to go, then go that way. And I will give you my opinion, but not until you've made a decision.
Yep.
You have to make a decision before I'm going to share my opinion. But the problem is most people are just going to share their opinions. They're not going to hold you accountable to taking action, because asking everybody for their feedback is a surefire way to squirrel out of control and get 17 different people to tell you 17 different things that they noticed, and none of them matter more than you getting it out the door.
Yep.
So don't ask, just did it work? And then start to get the data from the next steps.
And then you can work on V2.
Okay, so I said I wanted to give you guys a challenge. So in my world, we talk a lot about search engine optimization and answer engine optimization. And this isn't new. Answer engine optimization isn't anything new. It's not it's really, you just see it differently than you saw search engine optimization, because now you're seeing AI results with links to different places in the world, and you're going, how do I get my business to be one of those links that AI is telling the person searching is the answer, right? That's what a lot of people are wanting to know. How do I do that? How do I make that happen?
Well, I mean, because you know as well as anybody that people are moving away from opening up their browser, searching Google. They're just hitting their little GPT button or their little Claude button and and asking a question.
Yep. It's so to me, what I think is changing is the accessibility to understanding the structure of content is starting to become less of a super secret thing that people don't understand. Because if you were to do this is your challenge. You've got customers. As soon as you stop listening to this episode, start listening to the customers or reflect on 5 questions that you are always getting asked about your business, your product, your service. It could be, how much does it cost? It could be, what kind of product do you use to make this work? It could be whatever they ask you over and over and over again, because those questions become your FAQs. When you are answering questions.
Frequently asked questions.
When you're answering a question via email, when a question comes in via text, when an employee asks you, how do we handle this? Those become your frequently asked questions. You publish them. You V1, publish a page on your website with just those questions. Here's a bonus. If you have a keyword strategy, then you tie your answers or the ways that the questions are being asked with a keyword strategy. And a keyword might be, if you're a plumber, it would be, new toilet installation, something like that. And then your answer is, how long does it take for new toilet installations to be completed? Whatever that is, your answer then also includes the keyword in the language of the response. Okay? So that way, if someone goes and says, how long does it take for a new toilet to be installed? That question exactly could result in your AI or the AI responding with a link or a reference to your business.
Right. It could shoot back saying the average toilet install takes 2.5 hours. And here who does it locally for you.
Correct. And here's according to these 3 sources, that would be the thing. So writing it down, write the 3 to 5 questions. These are not just for you to ask other people for opinions about. No. These are questions that you're going to go and you're going to put on your website before you listen to the next episode. And then after a couple of days, you can do a what is called an exact match search. And if an AI response is generated, you could potentially see yourself in the responses. And that's how you know that it worked. You want that self-gratification. I get it. I understand. I want it too. But understanding how the process works is basically, we're funneling the information based on what people have put in their websites, yes. Right? That's how that whole engine works. Mm-hmm. So that's your call to action. That's some practical things that you can do after listening to this episode to stop getting in your own way, to start working on that leaky bucket, because we all have one. I mean, it's not an accusation. It's just you need somebody to see it so that they can help you fix it.
Yes.
And that's what we want to help you do.
Yep. That's good.
Is it good?
Yeah, so I like the AEO part.
I will tell you.
Because it is new to me as well, understanding, I understand, not that I have as vivid of an understanding in SEO as you do, but I feel like I have enough to be dangerous. Mm-hmm. But AEO, answer engine optimization, or GEO, or whatever we're going to call it now, is one of those ones that even if you jump in the Reddit boards, the SEO Reddit boards, everybody's got a different opinion on exactly how it works.
Stop asking everybody's opinion.
No, ask your AI, ask your Chat GPT. Remember the experiment I was showing you? And it all came about because you're like, Dan, you're not showing up for events at the brewery. Mm-hmm. That's really what triggered it. I'm like, no, of course I am. And so I was like, hey, Chat GPT, what music is happening around Lakeland this weekend? And I'd be damned.
Yeah.
Swan never showed up for an answer.
You would be surprised at how many conversations I have with prospects and clients who tell me who their competitors are, mm-hmm. and then I go and do an online competitive analysis, and then I hear this. That's not my competitor.
Yeah.
They don't know what they're doing. Why are they showing up ahead of me, right? It's a very telling story when you believe that you've got it all kind of, you kind of, hey, I'm big man on campus. We've been here 25 years, we've been here 50 years, we've been here 100 years. We're the shit, right? Yeah. But some new little guy comes along and has all of his dots and I's dotted, T's crossed when it comes to their website and their content, and they've invested time and energy in all of the things that are going to work. You don't necessarily need to focus on this unless this is one of the goals that you have set for increasing volume of traffic to your website.
Right.
Because I will guarantee you're going to get zero traffic to your website if you're not on page 1.
Right.
And that will incrementally increase the higher you are up on the page and the multiple times that you are on a page, and especially now if you're in an AI result.
Oh, God, we could go so much into all of this, and I know we don't want to spill a whole bunch of secrets for exactly how it all works, because that's how you make your money.
Well,
but I think, but it all goes back to when you're, even in that scenario there, who's the bottleneck?
The thing is, when you just said what you said, the reality is nobody's going to take any action.
Yeah.
I can tell you all day long all of the things that you need to do. I'll give you the secrets. I'll tell you that you're not going to do anything. That's the problem. You're going to sit with the paralysis. You're going to sit here and fixate on the fact that this competitor that's not a competitor really has no business being on page 1, and that's not going to change the fact that he's there and you're not.
Because we are our own bottleneck.
We are
our own worst enemy.
We're in our own way. We're all in it, doing our own version of what we just described. You guys have your own versions. We have ours. But now I think what we're doing is we're bringing it out into the open and hopefully allowing you to say, yeah, I need some help. I would love to talk about how to operationalize my business and get a conversation with Dan and just sit and talk to him. Or if you're saying, I'm ready to take legitimate action and I'm not just wanting to sit around and let my competitors outrank me in search engines or whatever that strategy from a digital perspective may be, but you got to reach out and ask for help.
Yes.
That's the part that you got stuck in.
Yep.
And that's the part that I hope that people can hear. I don't really know the answer because you knowingly did it. And
I knowingly did it.
And you didn't reach out for help because you didn't want help.
I didn't know.
You didn't want a swift kick in the butt.
Not for this one, because it ended up being more of a science experiment for me. It was a learning opportunity, and I didn't have anything else that I was doing at the time. So,
okay.
It was more of...
Well, next time you're fixating.
Right. If I'd actually had more I did have more things that I could be doing because I wasn't focusing on my social media. I wasn't showing on, I wasn't focusing on my funnel.
Correct.
But
you were bringing the water from the well.
In my mind, it was like, I don't have anything else going on. I can go ahead and spend a little bit more time on this.
Right.
But the reality is, I missed out on sales. I missed out on opportunities to network. I missed out on opportunities to do different things.
Right.
Let's go through. Do we define funnel? I think we did that.
We did it.
Yep. Packaging your expertise. I think we did a pretty good job of that one.
Talked about shipping.
And we talked about shipping it.
But don't ship your pants.
That was a great commercial.
I love that commercial.
All right. Next time. So I am out of town next week.
Yes.
I will be up.
So we'll probably do another week off.
Yeah.
And then we'll be back again.
Yep. We'll figure something out. I will be. I'm not going to do a remote podcast from the wilderness in Alaska. I don't even think they have internet up there.
Fun.
It would be fun.
But too much work and not worth the outcome. It's the 80-20 rule.
Yeah. No, I'm going to take some time off. I'm going to go spend it up in the cold north and
enjoy.
Yeah. So we'll be back.
You're going to be a polar bear. Hang out with the polar bears.
I think it's going to be like in the 60s.
Oh, okay.
50s, 60s. So, all right, we'll go ahead and roll the end credits, please. Again, like, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow us on Facebook at Elevate Polk and on all of your favorite podcasts. And please take the call to action. Give us some
feedback.
Comments. Give us some feedback.
Did we get the job done?
Right.
Not what did you think? Did we do the thing?
Did we do the thing?
Hopefully you enjoyed the show.
All right.
We'll see you on the next one.
See ya.
Bye. Woohoo!
It's no surprise to me. I am
my own worst enemy.